good morning. Thank you for coming in here. The title of my presentation is 3 lines of text, and I was feeling super pretentious when I was writing that. So please disregard and just keep one thing in mind. I'm going to be talking today a little bit about myself, a little bit about the company, Adhere Games, where we do magical things. And the biggest part of the presentation will be dedicated to one success story of one game which we discovered in Japan, completely stripped apart and localized and culturalized and brought to the Western markets and reached nice results. And I'm going to be telling more details about how and why. Right, so this is me. Currently, I'm managing portfolio of free-to-play mobile games with Adhere Games. I have several years of experience in managing freemium products. That was starting an e-commerce website, and before that, I was working as a producer on TV game show. The reason why I'm showing you this picture, normally I would be on the other side of the camera, normally I would be in the control room, and in the control room, I would have 2 main tools. I would have a microphone where I would be talking into the ear of the presenter on screen, so she would be actually repeating word by word what I'm telling her. And how I knew what I wanted her to say, I had monitors in front of me showing me second by second amount of incoming calls right now in the studio. Doing every day this for over a year gives you an amazing understanding of what triggers consumer psychology, what triggers people to convert, what convinces people to trust the product and choose to pay for the product that they feel engaged with. And at the end of the presentation, if we will have a few seconds left, I have some bonus slides on preaching on how I think conversion works best, but we'll get to that by the end. Right now, I just wanted to share this with you to give an idea where I'm coming from and why you should listen to me about my experience in Adhere Games. I keep saying Adhere Games, but early this year we were acquired by ProSieben, which is one of the largest media holdings in Europe. And very soon we will have a new name, 7 Games. But right now I'm still referring to it as Adhere Games. Effectively what this made us into is a top 3 player in Europe. And we are having games mostly published for Americas and Europe. Our 3 main languages are English, French, and German. And we have more than 80 million happy users. Our head office is in Berlin. We just opened an office in Seoul and about to open an office in San Francisco. In Berlin, we have over 300 happy, talented people and an amazing building. There is the ground floor, which is right at the river. So if you're happy and you have a seat next to the window, in summer you can actually feed the swans which swim by right from your seat. I'm not that lucky. I'm with mobile games. We're all the way up on the 4th floor, and the happy swan feeding people are the client game people. Why so? Because the DNA of the company started with pure publishing of PC games. The model was very straightforward. We would discover a very interesting and successful MMORPG made in Taiwan or Korea, which already reached some success. We would localize it and publish it on the Western markets. The same would go for browser games. Several years ago, when we decided that we have to go into mobile, and we jumped right in, we went for a slightly different model, which is called port and publish, which means that we were keeping the code, but we were completely rethinking how we localize the game, how we publish, and how we monetize the game. And this is exactly what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Why we choose Asian games? Why do we work like that? Why do we go into Taiwan, into Korea, into Japan? Simply because we think that Asian developers are true innovators. With PC games, all the initial great breakthroughs in free-to-play were coming from there. On mobile, they were present since feature phones, and this makes us believe that we should definitely look into the markets. Not only anecdotal data, but also the fact that the metrics are very impressive. Starting with retention, this is an example of Rage of Bahamut, and this game, this is only on the example of the US markets. In the US App Store, it received huge amount of downloads right when it was published 2.5 years ago. But for the past year and a half, there were almost no downloads. So much so that on App Annie, it just doesn't appear in the downloads rankings. It's below 1,500. But with the top grossing, it went up into top 10 grossing within a few weeks, and it is still within top 100 grossing after 2.5 years, which means that they don't receive new downloads. They still monetize on the players who are playing and who are paying for all these years. Another example would be average revenue per paying user, which was compared between different countries on average. And you see that Chinese average revenue per paying user is higher than that of a US user. And average revenue per user is also very impressive. You can see that Puzzle & Dragons, the Maverick from the East, is larger, has larger KPIs by a factor of 9 or even 15 than the most successful counterparts from here. Please keep in mind those numbers, remember them, because I will show you a few of our numbers at the very end just to compare. I'll ask you to guess as well. All right. Despite all this amazing success, there is a firm wall between the apps which are coming from the East and the apps which are coming from the West. These are the lists of top 5 grossing apps between different country app stores, and you see that there is almost no crossover. Taiwan was very happy with letting Candy Crush in, but that's more or less it. And we were thinking, why is that happening? There are amazing games in the East which are performing amazingly well and which are not known by the Western audience. And since we have so many years of publishing PC games and knowing what the audience want in this or that country, we decided to use all that knowledge and to apply it to the mobile market. So this is what we did. We discovered a Japanese game which was top 20 grossing in Japanese App Store, the Guardian Battle of Glory it was called. It is a card trading game, card battle game, collecting card game, you name it. And it was performing very well in Japan. So what we did, we localized the art style, we culturalized the communication, we rethought monetization, and we left the game engine almost untouched. So the developer is still sure that their code is their code, but the game is very hard to recognize. And I'm going to show you how and why. Just to explain to you why you're listening to that, because with that game we reached top 2 grossing in Germany, top 3 grossing in France, and quite good success in other app stores. Right. So this is what I'm going to be talking to you about different changes that we made. And I'll hope that you will see quite a lot of subtle differences for the art style section. So let's start with the icon. We took the icon, and after what seemed to be 150 or 200 different iterations, came to a very Western, very darkish fantasy style icons. as a general rule, it is a good strategy to change the icon with each major update. So we have quite a few in our backlog. This young vampire lady is our Halloween edition. As for the art style, it is a card collecting game, so cards are the biggest part of the game, the biggest asset. And we decided that the concepts themselves were interesting, but not really good for the Western eye. So we rethought the art style into a more epic and adventure world. And the appeal is rather enticing, not as revealing, because the art style is much more realistic. With the events and with the different references, as you see, we couldn't give to our players Sakura Blossom event. I mean, we could, but then we would appeal to the niche segment of the audience. So we are thinking and updating all the time with Christmas event. And as for the cultural references, in Japan, it is very common to make deals with the anime franchises. For us, it was Jeanne d'Arc. I was prepared for speaking in Paris. We have the Three Musketeers, we have the Headless Horse Rider, and we have the Pumpkin King, for example, and a lot of more examples of cultural references which are speaking to this or that particular market. With the simplified UI, the Western eye isn't used to processing so much information at once. We have a lazy and ADD eye, and we need one thing to focus on. So we had to break down the tutorial by slightly more steps, but accommodate into one message per step, so that there is no big drop-off. It was a lot of iterations in soft launch, a lot of monitoring at which stage people drop off, and simplifying in order to send the message as clear as possible. The next one would be, about banners. Most of the communication we have with our players is through banners on the homepage. And you see again that in Japan, it is common practice to try to convey as much information as possible to the user and convince them right through the banner. We are selling more the concept of something interesting which is happening, the idea of the event, the style of the event, which makes people click more on those banners. This is the game design part. Let me talk you through it. When we grabbed the game for the first time, it had one monthly event, raid event, where you would take your guild members and you would go into nodes, fight special bosses. The raid event, it would last for 10 days. At the end, you would get rewards. And in the Japanese version originally, you would get 50% of your rewards from your personal rankings and 50% of your rewards from the rankings of your guild. We tried that in our versions, in the Western versions, and we saw that participation in this event was abysmal. And we were trying to iterate event after event after event to understand what would convince our players to participate. And it turned out that we are much more selfish here in the West. We don't like freeloaders, and we don't want to share our rewards with someone else who might be in our guild but not participate as much. So when we finally got to the best performing event, it was when the rewards were 95% personal for personal achievements and only 5% for the guild achievements. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that the more engaging the event is, the worse your monetization is. So these 10 days a month are completely horrible for us in terms of how we monetize, but we're willing to give this 10 days for our players to enjoy and play non-stop. We've heard from our most loyal guys that they just take days off work and sit at home and try to be the best and get to this 95% achievement. Another very important thing that I want to talk to you when it comes down to Japanese games, Eastern games, bringing them here, is gacha. Do you know what gacha is? All right, one person? How many? Two, three people. Oh, yay, awesome. Generally, I didn't know before we started working with these games. Gacha is your standard vending machine with candy or with capsuled toys that you can see in front of a supermarket. Now, for me as a kid, those were interesting and fun, but I don't normally come back to those when I'm an adult. In Japan, it's a different story. The machines with the gachapon are standing in front of the supermarket. There are several stores, 4-storied buildings filled with those machines with different items, and those get refreshed every week. It is absolutely amazing. The toys are of much higher quality. If in Europe it is a cheap plastic knockoff, then here it can cost €3–5 per piece, and the quality of the plastic will be really nice, and it will be a collector's item. Now, why I'm telling you that? Because in Japanese culture, this element of choice, this element of a lucky box, a wheel of fortune, you name it, is very much engraved in the culture. So when there are different types of gacha in different Japanese games, the consumer is very much used to different types of playing with probabilities, of never getting something guaranteed, of trying your luck and going over and over again with the small price points until you finally get something that you really desired after what could be €1,000 to €3,000 spent. So when we got the game, in the Japanese game, 93% of revenue were coming from gambling. 93% of revenue were coming from people trying to get the card that they want, the super legendary rare card, over and over again. When we published this game in the Western markets, our guys didn't go for it that much. For us, gambling is only around half of the revenue, which means that if we didn't try to be creative, if we didn't try to branch out, then we would have lost effectively around 40% of our revenue. How we did that? Let's look at the price points. In the Japanese game, the cheapest price point is 100 gold coins, which is €1. And the most expensive one is 3,000 coins, which is €30. These are the price points in the game which are accessible. This one is supposed to be the converting item, this one with a huge discount, and this one is supposed to be the gacha with 11 cards, which people buy over and over again. We needed to be much more aggressive on conversion, so our lowest price point starts with just 9 cents, and we have quite a few of those. And our most expensive price point is €500. And if you see, this is a bonus program, a loyalty program, which you can revolve. So, for example, you spend $4, you get a prize. Then you spend $15, you get another one. And if you get to the 500, you can rotate over and over again. And people do. And this is how we try to convince them that at least something will come as a guarantee for you. At least here you know that if you gamble and if you play, if you don't get what you wanted, at least there are some nice rewards here for you as a thank you, as a loyalty compensation. So just to remind you about the KPIs that we had at the beginning with you, would anyone want to guess what is the monthly average revenue per user of our game, Immortalis? 20. Actually, yes, 20. But maybe what you couldn't have guessed is average revenue per paying user. This is the daily and this is the monthly, and these are by far not the biggest ones, because the longer into the life cycle of the game, the higher your indicators are, because the less because non-paying users churn out and your ARPU grows with the age of the game. And one more thing that I wanted to show you is that we were so happy with the success of this game that we attempted another reskin project, the same engine, but absolutely different universe. And we were going for a even more common Western look. This game is called Battles and Monsters, BAM, and we're about to launch it in a few weeks and hope to see very similar results to Immortalis. I think we have, I would like to thank you for your attention here. I would like to welcome some questions. I still have some goodie bag with slides on conversion, but I would like to answer your questions on this part first. BAM is, the question was if BAM is soft launching. BAM now is in soft launch. It is in soft launch in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And it is going for commercial release mid-November. So right now we are in the final stages of fine-tuning, reworking tutorial again, just to make sure there is no drop-off there and it is as smooth as it could be.
And your MAR PPU is in the same range of the ones for the first game. The numbers in your soft launch, if you're going to launch, are close to what you
The numbers
showed
in the
us.
soft launch are close to how we had the numbers for Immortalis, yes. But we always want to improve.
Hello, thank you for great presentation. When you talk for a Lucky Box for Europe, for Western market, what do you think is better to players win often with small rewards or win not so often but with big rewards, with empty box too? What is better?
We let our users decide. We have both cheap lucky boxes and super expensive ones. So for example, there would be a €1 box where you could have a chance to win something which costs in players' idea 1,000. And the chances would be quite small, but the players would be happy with that. At the same time, we would have a box which would cost €50, which would give you great chances. There are risk-averse and risk-prone people, and we try to cater to both.
You mean that when they play with small amount of money, they have more risk, and when they spend more money for one, the risk is smaller?
Yeah, let's say that, and this is another amazing part about Japanese games. They have a gentleman's agreement between GRI, DNA, and other large companies in Japan to disclose probabilities. So they have, every time they publish a lucky box, they have to publish which probabilities are for which item. We don't yet, but as a general rule, yes, the low probabilities for the amazing item would be in the cheap pack, and we would even tell them that, look guys, this pack is much more expensive, but you have a 50% chance to get this item, and it would be their choice.
Okay, thank you.
But both sell equally well.
Hi, just a quick question. How does the European version compare to the Japanese version of Immortalis in retention and monetization?
The European versions of Immortalis, for example, in 90-day lifetime value, 3 times higher than the Japanese one. 3, yeah. And as far as retention goes, we have very similar 3-day retention, for example, but on the Western games, the 30-day retention is much higher. So the users are much more loyal on the long run. And one difference which we discovered when talking to our Japanese counterparts is their customer service is purely answering tickets of customers. We have game masters who are working with the community, who are present in the game. We have 2-3 people per language who the community know, who are trying to communicate with them. So we are attributing late retention to these guys who are constantly working with our players.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I had a question about the way you rework the creatives and the look of the characters. Was some kind of market research or A/B testing behind those decisions, or was it just your feeling?
Our CEO has an awesome saying. It goes, there is no second chance to make a bad impression, to make a bad first impression. So in case of the creatives, we didn't do any A/B testing. What we did is we worked at that point for 5-6 years with Asian MMOs in the West, with introducing different items and tracking different styles and preferences. What we knew, for example, is that anime-style MMOs would go perfectly great in France, but very poorly in Germany, because Germany would go for the very darkish fantasy style instead. And we have different MMOs in different genres, so we would be able to compare over years. That's why when we went for this game, we wanted to go for a very darkish style oriented for Germany, the Nordics, the US, and it is actually very much loved in France as well. What we are doing is, since we are releasing quite a lot of cards, it can be up to 20 cards per month, then we are asking our community for the feedback. They are constantly voting for their favorite creatives. We are giving them as a reward the opportunity to spec out and create their own art, which is kind of cheating because we use that when we are out of the ideas completely. But both are happy. And I had a conversation yesterday with someone who was telling me that this type of games are super male-oriented and we don't have our female users there. And I was telling them that we have so many nice-looking ladies, so that every time we release a card with another lady, we have quite a few voices on the forum saying, hey, you're making all those cards for the guys, can you finally make some nice-looking dude for us?
Other questions? Okay, we just have a couple minutes if you'd like to go ahead with some other
Right.
slides.
So I would like to. I would like to talk you through the 10 Commandments of Conversion, the preaching that I like to do to our fresh producers. And this is based on the TV experience and all the experiences before, and looking at how the guys are doing it. So the first commandment would be the pay-to-enjoy experience. I don't like the phrasing pay-to-win. I try to avoid pay-to-win situations. In Immortalis, when we compared the top rankings of the top biggest competition in the game, then the holders of the first places were our most core players, not most core spenders. And we are trying to give this balanced experience for both. But when it comes down to conversion, I want to tell you a story. I have a friend, and he's studying in the game academy, and he hates free-to-play. They invite quite a lot of speakers from the industry, and every time that they come there and they preach about free-to-play, how to organize it, how to monetize it, he's sitting somewhere at the back, he's waiting through the whole lecture, and then he's asking the speaker the same question. Would you please admit that when a game designer creates a free-to-play game, he creates a much worse game than if it were a boxed product? And he's trying to get this answer from every single person from the industry. And I told him, look, Dennis, I don't agree with this concept. I don't agree with how you think, because how I feel is when a game designer creates a free-to-play game, he creates an amazing, super fun experience, and then just puts some limits here and there so that the game can be accessible to everyone. So the main rule of conversion, the main rule of the first item that your user would be purchasing in-game is suddenly discovering this amazing game that we were hiding from them all along, and this amazing experience. So make sure that the most converting item you have shows the difference of levels there. Number 2 would be maximum exposure. A lot of games are doing this very well. You see on the App Store, these are the examples from BAM and from Pirate Maidens, one of our games as well. If you have a great deal for the first-time buyer, then try to show it to them. Try to not hide it from them. Don't think that you have to show this only to the early players and hide it only after a few clicks when you realize that the person just doesn't want to get this. Don't be obviously super annoying, but try to make sure that people are aware of an awesome deal that they can have. Don't talk to the community as if everybody understands all of the abbreviations which are going on in the game. Try to make sure that your grandma or your mother would understand from the first glance that this or that makes sense. So these are both examples from Immortalis, and I think that this one is not such a good one just because it's targeted at people who would understand all of those abbreviations. This one is very clear, has a very clear messaging, and is easy to digest and understand. It is easy for me to know why this makes sense. Number 4, and this is the creative that came from my Photoshop skills of 2 years ago. You can laugh. I'm very proud of this one. Generally, when you create a nice converting package and you publish a few of them in the shop, you find the one with 100% consumption rate, stick to it. It means it works. Don't change it, because then you will just open yourself to exploits. What you should do, though, is optimize it sometimes with some seasonal promotions, like adding this panda only for this weekend. And when you need to rethink the package is when your community becomes older and when the gap between oldies and noobs is so big that you want to grab the fresh players and elevate them to the level of the most of the community. Number 5 would be the power of free. I'm talking about that because no matter how much you discount your items in game, no matter how crazy promotions with 99% discount you're running, even if it's 1 cent, what is free and it is much more powerful. So if you have a possibility in your game, then I would advise you to give a free present with the first purchase. We are doing that not on all the games. We are trying to implement this as much as we can. These are the examples from Goal 1, one of our games, one of our mobile games. And this is the example from Wolf Team, one of our client shooters. And it basically goes like, you have an exclusive item which there is absolutely no way to get anywhere else. It's not, it can be vanity item like this exclusive shirts for Goal 1. It can be great weapons, etc. But if it's coming as a free package, as a welcome package with the first purchase, it has a very powerful message and it has a very great appeal. Number 6 would be the context. When you want your players to convert into spenders, then you are better off placing a very cheap, attractive package among the more or less same items. So if your main converting item is stamina potion, and if 1 stamina potion is, say, €1, then your best converting strategy would be, for example, a bundle of 5 of them for 49 cents. And then you place that one next to the stamina potion itself so that people can understand what is the biggest value that they're getting out of it. Another good example would be, there was an experiment with the bottles of wine, which are standing on the shelf. There would be €7, €8, and €15. And when you look at those 3, then you're thinking, okay, the €15 is way too expensive. I'm going to go for this middle-priced €9 thing. But as soon as you add the €39 bottle on the shelf, then the 15 sounds like an amazing deal. It is in our nature not to go for something very cheap because we want to value ourselves and we want to treat ourselves nicely. And it is in our nature not to go for the most expensive one, and we settle in between. So the higher you go with the range, the more chances you have. Same goes for Prada bags. They, in every collection, have the most expensive one, just to, show you that this is super expensive, and then the rest of the collection suddenly looks very, very nice and polished. As a general rule, when you're trying to think about how to convert, come back to your consumer experience. Think what made you do this or that purchase, and try to replicate the same experience. The two-step approach that I'm preaching about is, if you give one good deal to convert, it's great, but it's not enough. You have to enforce the spender behavior. You have to give the second amazing deal very shortly afterwards, because if the person spent once, you might have them, but if the person spent twice, then they're on the path of spending in your game, then they're committed. This is the example from Heyday. I think they are doing an amazing job with those time-limited pop-ups and offers. The payment method is very important. If you are working with hard currency, and if you're selling hard currency in shop, and then you're going for selling items in game for the hard currency, then obviously it makes, so in this case, for example, same gold coins, and this is the example from Battles and Monsters. If you're selling gold coins in shop, and then you're selling items for gold coins, then try to make this pricing in the coins as closer to the packages that you're selling in the shop, so that the buying is convenient for the user and it is a no-brainer. The power of number 9 is one of my favorite rules. I was thinking to myself a few years ago, who goes for these prices which end with 9? I personally don't think that is any power messaging. It's just cluttering the screen. Maybe we should go away from it. And then I dig in to find some research. And it says that on average, the prices which end with 9 bring you 24% more revenue. There was an experiment in the University of Chicago and MIT. It was a joint research where they went into a supermarket and they said, okay, so we have this, I think it was a blouse. We have this blouse, and we're going to sell it to 3 different groups. One will be, for one group it will be priced $34, for another it would be $39, and for another it would be $44, right? So the one which cost $39 sold better than the one which cost $44, which is what we would expect. But it also sold better than the 34, which is counterintuitive. So the 39 sold better than the 34 priced blouse, which means that you are better off rounding up with a 9, and psychologically it triggers spending behavior, because I don't know, maybe we think that it looks like a 0, maybe we just drop it off. I don't know how it works, but next time you're in the shop and you're looking at the price, just catch yourself thinking about this. And the last one is the power of mass market. The more spenders you have in your community, the better your community reacts to this or that promotion, the less raging there is, and the more happiness and acceptance there is. So I know that there were quite a few talks in this conference about whales or VIP spenders, and God knows we have quite a lot of those in Immortalis. In Japanese game, there are quite a lot of people who spend up to $10,000, $15,000 per month. Not as crazy in our games, but still quite a lot of heavy spending, amazingly dedicated people. But if you cater to those, you risk alienating your community. If you cater to people who are doing a few microtransactions, then you get a very happy and receptive community, and every new sale is accepted like a great deal and a great fun. Thank you.